Hello and welcome to Blog Tornado. How are you today? And today we're going to go over Bob Lazar's 9 UFOs. So supposedly those UFOs are at S4 at that time, which was 30 years ago, and we don't obviously know where are they now. So far what the problem is with those 9 UFOs in the story is they could have been actual UFO prototypes that US military was working on at the time, and they probably needed some help as far as technology was involved with Bob Lazar, and maybe that's why he was asked to work at S4. But those UFOs, those prototypes, must have been already established, and when he walked in, to him, they might have looked like the real thing. And this is the funny part. There's a possibility that Bob Lazar actually knows about that. And yet, he doesn't want to admit it. The reason why is because of popularity. And he cannot be caught lying because he actually seen 9 UFOs. Again, were they prototypes that he knows about, and he's not telling us? Because at some point, if you remember from Joe Rogan interview, he's saying that only once he saw UFOs, 9 UFOs, only once when he walked by the hangar, and in the distance he saw 9 UFOs, and that only happened once. And what he said there was a very vital piece of information that ties into this particular video. What I'm trying to explain to you, why those 9 UFOs could be a project the military was working on, is because he said that they were all different shapes. Now, that's understandable because, anybody that's trying to make a UFO, they will try to basically make different prototypes and see which one works better as far as aerodynamics are concerned. So that could explain what he actually saw, but it was sufficient enough to tell everybody about this because of popularity that he wanted to get from this. And the reason we can't catch him lie about this because he actually saw them, and they were US military UFO prototypes. And he actually talked about that as well. So that's the whole idea behind this video, what Bob Lazar actually seen and what could actually be the truth. And as you know, again, they obviously would let him go if this UFOs were actually made by US military. It's not a problem. However, if they were real, the chances of him being let go with such information would have been slim because, again, we're dealing with the US military and such information is not for the public. And so that's what brings the question and makes the story hard to believe, because such information got out so easily into the public eye. And as I explained before, anybody that would make such a decision, especially inside the military, would be highly unlikely. And even if they did, whoever was in command, in charge, they would have few advisors, which probably they would advise them not to for such information to get into the hands of a civilian such as Bob Lazar. And they should have known what would happen. As you know, it did. It got into the public eye, the story. So now you know that is a really interesting question, to say the least. I'm not sure how he got passed through that barricade, but somehow he did. And here we are. The whole world is now confused. The whole world is now curious about that 9 UFOs, especially after Jeremy Corbell made a show with Bob Lazar, made a documentary about Area 51 and Bob Lazar and flying saucers titled video, and that's now causing a lot of questions around around the world, where exactly those 9 UFOs are now, and that's where we stand at this moment. The few things that don't line up in the story, like I said, if Bob Lazar was lying, then you have to watch Joe Rogan show, and understand that the amount of pressure that Bob Lazar would go through to lie in front of the whole world, especially being exposed on Joe Rogan show, with how many million subscribers. I mean, it's next to impossible to lie without breaking a sweat. I mean, he didn't show any kind of behavior that could tell us that he was lying. Although he did say a few things in that story that kind of he inserted himself, okay, which Joe Rogan never asked him, but he added a few things that kind of could cover up the tracks as far as I'm concerned, that would explain why there are no scientists working or coming forward with the story, and especially in the past 30 years. No one has come forward. Whoever those scientists might have been that worked previously before him, we don't know for how long even. It could have been for a long time, but where are they now? How come nobody came forward in this 30 years or so with this story to back him up? Somebody should have talked. I mean, but then again, here comes the question. Well, if the other scientists are not allowed to come forward with its story, and who knows what happened to them? Who knows? Why was Bob Lazar a special person that was, allowed to? They let go. Why him, but not the other scientists? So that's what, also could answer why those 9 UFOs might have been just US prototypes, UFO prototypes that the military was working on. And therefore, nobody's coming forward with a story because basically it's not real UFOs. So why should anybody come forward and lie about it, say those were real UFOs, when they themselves realized, they were actually just prototypes? And again, there was 9, and why so many, right? That kind of explains that maybe there was, they had to create a lot to see which one works better, and to see which one is best as far as aerodynamics goes or whatnot. So that's why you need a few, and that could explain why there was 9 UFOs. The real question is, why did U.S. military wanted to build a UFO? Where did they get inspiration from? What motivated them to make something that looks like an alien spacecraft? Why in the shape of UFO? Could it be they get some kind of information from somewhere that, and they try to duplicate it or recreate it? And which kind of explains the Roswell, New Mexico incident with the UFO that crashed over there, and basically, they sort of could have tied in with this whole situation, and maybe that UFO was later on confiscated by U.S. military and put into the S4 area or Area 51, where they later on went and study how to recreate it or whatnot. If the UFO was damaged from the crash, then maybe they tried to replicate the technology or whatever they could get from it and try to duplicate the technology. And as you know, like I said, Bob Lazar said there was 9. And the reason he doesn't appear to lie, because they were actually there, except whether he knows or not, he might have known that they were actually just prototypes that the U.S. military was working on. That's basically something he doesn't want to admit. Okay, why? Because for popularity. As you know, the whole world knows about him now, and you know how popular he got. As a matter of fact, even what I'm doing here, talking about Bob Lazar, also brings some attention towards my channel because of this man, which is all good, sure. But what I'm more interested in, since I'm more interested in truth behind the UFOs than, of course, I like to get views, no problems, subscribers. Of course, everyone likes to get that. But But what's more important here is the truth. As you know, I'm also someone who witnessed UFO orb phenomena. Not too extreme like Bob Lazar has, but I believe the orbs, the glowing lights, actually has something to do with alien spacecraft, such as UFOs that Bob Lazar supposedly seen. I will leave a link to you below, and you can see for yourself a news report which talks about people seeing orange lights, and they look like they were about to crash into the forest. And when the person went there and taped it, it looked like a UFO alien in the snow, which later on they covered up about being chicken. Which is really, I mean, listen to see the video for yourself, and then you'll see how just even the reporter, even the newscast couldn't believe what he just said. And it doesn't make much sense when you look at it for that to be a chicken. So but I think it was just a quick cover up, not to scare people and just to come out straight like that. So it's really could have been real, but they leave it up to your imagination, and then so people don't freak out, the public doesn't freak out. So check out the link below, but stay with me so we can get this resolved here. So again, to confirm, I really think that Bob Lazar did see those UFOs. They were real. However, they were not props. They were not something that to fool Bob Lazar in any kind of way. I mean, why would they do that? But it does explain, it gives us a little bit of hint what those UFOs he's seen in a hangar in a distance, that they were 9. And that explains a little about why they were 9, and also why they were different shapes. So now, if that doesn't make sense, that somebody would create more spacecraft in a different kind of design to see which one flies better, I mean, isn't that some kind of vital information right there? However, like I said, maybe Bob Lazar at some point realized that that was military who created them, but he didn't want to talk. He doesn't want to admit that those were made by military. Again, why? Simply because of popularity. If you're gonna go around with this kind of story out into the wild, there's definitely going to be some kind of reaction as far as his story goes, which sounds insane to begin with. And if the bottom rule is from any kind of lies, the bottom line is, if it sounds ridiculous, then probably it is. If it sounds too crazy, then probably it's fake. And that's where this paradox of this situation, of this problem, always arises, because a lot of people go in thinking, trying to analyze Bob Lazar, and as soon as everybody sees him being interviewed, he looks like he's not telling any lies. And then obviously he falls into pathological liar, and everybody thinks maybe that could be the answer. Why is he making up this story? But I mean, there's no clues that he's lying in any kind of way. So if that's the case, then what were those UFOs actually? Were they real or were they fake? So when you get to that point, then you start thinking, well, why would they make fake UFOs? It doesn't make sense. Is Bob Lazar so special? Would it be for some political reasons that he would run back into the public and tell everybody what US is capable of now that they have such technology in their hands? But I don't think so. That would be the case. I don't think US would go that far. But what I am saying is that perhaps those 9 UFOs, again, I'm going to say it because this is where you might end up. A lot of people who put their mind into the story, this is where you might end up. As you know, I made few videos already, and it sort of led me to this point where I'm thinking that those 9 UFOs were actually military experiments that working on their own UFO that they were trying to create. And I did have a footage, and I'll see if I can find it, that you might want to look as well in a second link below. And I wonder where that footage came from. Now that footage, to me, it looks like, there's people there, and it also, they're examining this UFO, and also it gets off the ground and you can see it fly somewhat. They don't show the top of the UFO, but just the bottom. The wheels lift off, and the UFOs is now hovering in the air. I don't know where the footage came from, but that could have been one of those UFOs, one of those prototypes. So it seems like it is. So maybe is that what Bob Lazar saw? But he doesn't want to admit it, although he might actually know they were made by US military. But the reason why he can flawlessly say what he's saying in his story is basically because he really saw them and they were really there. And that's why he cannot get caught lying, because the story is flawless. He did see. If you see something with your own eyes, the chances are that when they ask you questions, you'll be able to tell them exactly what he's seen. But he might have known, and that's what I'm saying, he might have known that those UFOs were actually US military experiment, and that they were working on a UFO. That explains why there were 9, and also explains why they were different shapes. So I don't know where else can we go with this story so far, but that's, to me, is most obvious conclusion at the moment, a wall where you just can't get past beyond that point of logistics somehow. And again, that explains why he wasn't let into the public again. Simple, because of that very reason. They had no reason to stop him, because again, they were just projects that they were working on. The only problem there is why they were working on a UFO. Where did they get an idea? So that gives me a little bit of hint, they must have duplicated something. And as you know, the Roswell, New Mexico story about the crashed UFO could explain, and there's few documentaries about that, why that it was not a weather balloon, which probably US military tried to cover it up, but it was actually a real UFO. And I believe they might have, and you also know there's a lot of footage of aliens, actual aliens. I don't know if they're from Area 51 or whatnot, but would they be, from that spaceship or from that UFO that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico? We don't know if they survived, the aliens survived or not. But the question is, if anything, where did those UFOs, the idea behind the military experiments of making their own UFO, where did it came from? That is all that really matters in the story. So, because what they created, they definitely got an idea from somewhere, because a lot of people report seeing supposedly the UFOs look like something like that. And why would they not be creating something else rather than making UFOs, which is light years ahead to understand right off the bat? I mean, you cannot jump in such evolution of flying technology, aerodynamics or whatnot, just from A to Z, just within just like that. I mean, you must have seen something first before you make such a jump. And and there just seems to be such a big step that anybody would just go right ahead and start working on those UFOs. Again, we do have a proof, and even Bob Lazar mentioned that they were working on different prototypes of UFO. And maybe that's a story he shouldn't have let out, because that sort of explains a lot about what he was saying in his story. And that could have been something that actually answered everything. Just like what I'm saying now, those 9 UFOs being US military project, nothing more. Probably there's a few things I left out, but for now, I mean, this is where I stand, and I don't seem to be able to get any further than that at the moment as far as that story goes. And I sincerely think that those UFOs were a military project. That's basically it. So, and we have to look into more information as far as Roswell, New Mexico goes. And I believe whatever crashed there, that's where military was influenced by that technology, and that's why they were making prototypes and try to replicate that technology, perhaps from the crashed UFO in Roswell, New Mexico. And that's why they were working on that, and that's what Bob Lazar saw. And again, it's a question: was he aware of that? Because he knows that kind of story is kind of cool, and therefore, hey, why not tell everybody? Might as well be popular. Because really, in the UFO world, Bob Lazar is pretty much a rock star. You know that. And it did happen. That's exactly what perhaps he wanted out of this whole story, out of this situation, and he got it. So, like I said, as you know, he's very popular at the moment, and he was even more so now because of Joe Rogan interview and Jeremy Corbell documentary, and he's just growing in popularity. But we have to understand what really happened there, and we need to get to the truth of this whole situation, and so we don't get confused. And until somebody from S4 or Area 51 comes straight forward and explains what really happened, and they have to let us understand why were there 9 UFOs over there in that facility, and what were they actually, what was the story behind them. So like I said, I try to explain my opinion on this and my 2 cents on this, but as far as they let him go to begin with, and to me, just they let him go again because there was no reason to hold him back, because basically the UFOs were just prototypes military was working on. So anyways, I'm going in circles here, but it does you do kind of hit the wall when you get to that point. And if anything, then the question is, what's in between other things that Bob Lazar mentioned, him going inside the UFO again, as I was explaining in Bob Lazar Decoded. I mentioned there the UFOs were actually props, but I shouldn't have said that. They were obviously for a reason, and that reason must have been an experiment the military was working on. But I didn't mention that over there. But again, I got to the point where I said, why did they let him go? And that didn't make any sense. And now in this video, you can understand why they would let him go again, because those UFOs were simply just experiment that U.S. military was working on. So what's the point of holding him? They think maybe there's no big deal, but he converted the whole story into something else and make people believe, perhaps on purpose, intentionally, that those UFOs might have been real, just to gain popularity. And as you know, that's very evident. He actually gained the popularity in UFO world and around the world. And that's pretty much my truth-seeking quest here as far as Bob Lazar's 9 UFO goes. So if you have any opinions you would like to add, please do so. Would be much appreciated. As you know, as you can getting some hint that this channel is really all about seeking truth and real alien life, not the fake things that are going on internet. And I also make a video you want to check out about fake UFOs hovering on YouTube titled. And that is becoming a problem, and we're seeing way too many fake UFOs, fake UFO videos, and even those that are UFO videos, alien videos, that are actually showing the real footage of aliens. They seem to be circulating around, and they've been gaining a lot of recognition. Seems like they're the same videos, they always show up as far as aliens go. But I mean, come on, with the technology that we possess today when it comes to 3D animation world, as you can see what we can do in Prometheus or District 9, Star Wars. I mean, come on, to fake something like that would be so easy, as a matter of fact, and that's why those videos they look old, but they might have been like super new, okay, because we can fake it to make it look old. And that's why it's hard to get any truth behind those kind of videos. Although I do see a pattern by watching different YouTube UFO videos. I do see a pattern, and I will talk about that because those people don't seem to be related in any kind of way. They don't know each other. It's all from different periods of time that these videos were created, and they all show some important clue that every single story that I was able to pick out, they have similarities, and they actually talk about that. Just like I talk about orbs, like in my if you go to Blog Tornado in UFO article, that UFO orb phenomena in UFO section, I talk about orbs. I know what their behavior, what would they do if I see one on some other video. And I can even leave a link below as far as the Western Massachusetts goes. There is a UFO orb footage, and it's got so many similarities to what I've seen, and so I know it has to be authentic, because something like that cannot happen in two different times, in two different parts of the world. I don't know those people, they don't know me, but yet they actually show it on a footage, on a video, and I only have a story. But from what I remember, the similarities are just incredible. So of course it's got to be the same thing. So I know for that reason, because I'm a witness, I know for that reason they're authentic, the video is authentic. So you can check out the Western Massachusetts orbs from Western Massachusetts down below. So yeah, if you like this particular episode, Bob Lazar and 9 UFOs, if you agree on some of this, you could subscribe down here at the bottom right corner, or give it a thumbs up. That would be great. You're free to follow this channel, of course, would be much appreciated. And again, I'm just hunting for the truth, and I'm sick and tired of fake videos and UFO videos, and that's not where exactly this channel wants to go at all. So at least you know that this is a little bit more serious, and I'm sure there's other channels that are very serious. But if you go to Secure Team channel, for instance, I personally, it's very hard for me to watch that half the time, because just the footage is questionable where it came from. And like I said, with the technology that we have today, motion tracking, 3D animation, compositing programs, I mean, it's very difficult to tell what's real, what's not. So that's why I certainly don't believe that every single video that's been posted on Secure Team is authentic. And that's why sometimes I feel like I'm looking at nothing. And when I feel like that, it's just a waste of time. So again, I'm seeking for the truth in this channel, and if anything, it's all about, as much as I can, facts about facts, and I'm able to see the truth by gathering information from YouTube, and that way I can compare it and see if these people, if they have something in common or nothing, or if the video have something in common that I can point out, and that's how I sort of go about seeking truth. Like for instance, when it comes to orbs, I'll give you a quick example here. When it comes to orbs, okay, I never knew who the Foo Fighters were. I listened to them here and there since they were Nirvana, part of Nirvana, and later on I found out that the name actually means something to do with orbs, and I didn't realize that. And here, it happened in World War II, and military thought it was actually fighter planes, German fighter planes, which they weren't, and they all thought they were, and they start shooting into the sky because at those lights. And that's what I'm saying. You see, now I can relate that story and the one from Massachusetts, because we don't know each other, but the same thing happened. Like similar thing happened as far as orbs goes. So that's the truth I personally like. That's I can compare something like with somebody that doesn't know me and I don't know them, and and if those things two match, then, and it happens many times, even NASA saw orbs before, they don't even know what they are. And however, I do have some explanation about this in my Illuminati Decoded video that I post, and I can give you a little bit of explanation what it could have been as far as Illuminati symbol goes. And you have to understand the Illuminati means illumination, something to do with light, and that's why I explain how orbs tie into this. So please watch Illuminati Decoded, the message in there, what I'm trying to say. It kind of brings questions about the AI and everything that I think it ties into this. But again, I'd just like to say thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I can understand it's a long video, so much appreciated. And I will see you in the next video. I post quite regularly, so when you come back, there's probably going to be another video waiting for you if you keep up with me. So don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Thank you.